Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz from the Chillicothe and Ross County Public Library, and I'm here with Sherry Russo, who's the Community Engagement Manager for WOUB Public Media, and Evan Shaw, who is a producer and director at WOUB Public Media. Welcome, Sherry and Evan.
Thanks so much for having us, Liz.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So today we're talking about Our Town, which is a program on WOUB Public Media, which is going to feature Chillicothe for their next episode. So I've been getting a lot of questions from people around Chillicothe who are not familiar with the series. Can one of you tell us a little bit about Our Town?
Evan, I'll let you take that one.
Okay, I'll take that one. And again, thank you for having us. For anybody who's not familiar with the Our Town series, Our Town is a show that we produce at WOUB that is a historical documentary series that focuses on the histories of cities and towns throughout southeastern and southern Ohio. Every year we pick a different city and we try to tell its story from the very beginning through modern day. And when I say the very beginning, we try to start out with the glaciers hundreds of thousands of years ago and how they came through and carved out our hills and valleys. And you know, the people of Chillicothe are well aware that that's where the glacier stopped, right there, where those hills start to rise up. And then we talk about the Native American peoples who were here first, the European settlements, their conflict, and how they work together sometimes, all the way through industry and famous people up until the present day. And like I said, every year we pick a different city, and Chillicothe has been on our list for a while. And I'm really excited to do it this year. The biggest problem we're going to have is fitting Chillicothe history into an hour-long television show. I'm still not quite sure how we're going to do that, but we'll figure it out somehow.
That is going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
So how did Our Town begin?
So it started out of a conversation that we had in 2014, actually, about different ways that we could serve our audience better with local content. One of the things that public television really prides itself on is providing local content for regions like ours, which may often get overlooked by larger media markets. And so we were trying to find different ways that we could tell stories about the people and the communities around us, stories that don't get enough attention or the attention that they deserve. And so the very first one that we did was Lancaster back in 2014. And then from there, we've done 6 more episodes, so 7 total, and Chillicothe will be the 8th one.
So was it always intended to be a series, or was it just going to be about Lancaster and grew from there because it was popular?
It was intended to be a series. I don't know that any of us realized it would kind of take off the way it has. It's kind of turned into my main project for the year, and I never realized it would do that when we were first starting. I'm really glad it has because I love it. But yeah, it was intended to be a series, but to be in our 8th season now and to have had it as well received as it's been has been pretty surprising and incredible, really.
And I think that Evan is not taking the credit that he deserves to take for that, in the sense that Evan is, and he'll tell you this, he's from Meigs County. He's a proud southeastern Ohio resident and just somebody who loves this area. And so I believe the reason it's taken off the way that it has is because he has so much passion about telling the story of this section of the state of Ohio, which just doesn't always get the love it deserves, just because it's not Cleveland, Columbus, or Cincinnati. You know, it's the rural part of the state, and it's a part of the state that many people just don't truly understand. And so he's taken it upon himself to tell these individual stories of towns. But when you put all of these together, it really tells a wonderful story about the cultural heritage of this part of the state of Ohio and why we should all be proud to live here and be from here.
Absolutely. And that's why I have my Meigs County plaque. It may be flipped around because I can't get my camera to flip, but that's it's always there.
I did want to also mention for anyone watching, please feel free to add questions in the comments, either on Facebook or YouTube, however you're watching, and I'll make sure that I pass those questions along. So Our Town is part of the local programming offered by WOUB Public Media. What does WOUB look for in its local programming?
So WOUB Public Media is the NPR and the PBS affiliate for 55 counties. So it's southeastern Ohio, and then parts of Kentucky and parts of West Virginia all fall into our service area. And as I mentioned earlier, this part of the state of Ohio doesn't always get the love it deserves, especially from media outlets. So, Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati media outlets don't come down here very often to cover news or to cover information unless it's tragic in some way, or there's a sad story to tell. And so we really take pride in the fact that we are the media outlet for this part of the state of Ohio. And we try to tell the positive stories, and we take that role really, really, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but really seriously, I guess is the best way to say it. On the radio and NPR, we have NPR programming, news programming during the day. In the evenings, we switch to cultural Appalachian bluegrass music programming that is very popular. And then on television, in addition to Our Town, we also have a couple of high school sports shows, one for football called Gridiron Glory, one for basketball called Hardwood Heroes. And the reason that we really do those shows is just because, a huge part of each community is their high school, and rooting for those kids on those teams. It's a way that people are brought together. And so when those teams don't get covered in the media, there's not that universal experience of celebrating success, or even, being sad when your team is defeated. So we have those shows that run throughout the year. And then we also have news programming on the radio. And then we have a half-hour news show called News Watch that runs Monday through Friday when there's not COVID. And Ohio University students are involved in helping us produce that. So then we partner with Ohio University because we're based in Athens, and we have a lot of journalism and communication students who work for us to help with that show.
Great. So we're talking a lot about stories, and stories are such an important part of who we are and how we learn. And of course, being in a library, I'm surrounded by stories. So have you always loved stories?
I have. I'll talk. Yeah, I have. I think, I love stories that can inspire me, that have come especially from the past, or stories of people who have gone through great, challenges and have overcome things. I think everybody enjoys stories like that, but I love finding stories that really touch on the human element. And that's one thing we really try to do with Our Town is, for instance, the 1913 flood will be covered in the story in Our Town, Chillicothe, but I'm looking for human experiences through that of normal people. We found a gentleman who went on to save several people, and then, in the floods on his boat, going down Main Street, basically picking people out of the water, and he saved a bunch of people. That's more interesting to me than telling people, well, the water was 34 feet high and it lasted for 17 hours. So I love stories in how they can inspire us and how we can relate to them. And in particular, like Sherry was talking about, doing stories for this region. I think that's important for us to have these stories of our past so that we know who we are. As the world becomes more and more connected, we start to lose those pieces of identity, those things that make our communities unique. And that's one thing that I hope the Our Town series can do a little bit, is celebrate the uniqueness and the diversity within Southern Ohio. While most people might think we're all very similar, all these little towns have such unique stories. And so I love having a chance to share those.
So what's the most interesting story that you've uncovered about Southern Ohio so far?
I think, speaking of Southern Ohio, not necessarily just Chillicothe, obviously, yet, but there's 3 stories that really stick out in my mind. And I'll be quick and brief with them. But in 1865, there's a gentleman named Charles Shorn, and he was from Pomeroy. He was a German guy, and he was a bugler for the cavalry unit in the Civil War. And at Appomattox Courthouse, the last battle of the Civil War, Mr. Shorn from Pomeroy captured Robert E. Lee's flag to basically end the Civil War. The war was going to end anyway, but he had a defining moment in it. And he was awarded the Medal of Honor. And local legend and family's tradition holds that he was actually on his way to deliver that flag to Abraham Lincoln and then the president was assassinated and he was never able to do it. Then you fast forward a few decades to 1941, December 7th, 1941. There was a gentleman from Middleport, which is Meigs County as well, named William Outerbridge, and he was the commander of a ship in Pearl Harbor. And that morning he woke up and he saw a submarine, a Japanese submarine in the harbor, and he radioed back to the base and said, "Hey, there's a submarine. What should I do?" And no one believed him. They thought it was a whale or that he was just making things up. And he said, "Well, I'm a naval captain. I know the difference between a submarine and a whale." So he sunk the submarine. Fast forward to the 1980s, they found that submarine on the bottom of Pearl Harbor, and William Outerbridge from Middleport is now credited with firing the very first shot of World War II, first American shot. So a guy from Pomeroy ends the Civil War, a guy from Middleport starts World War II. Then fast forward to 1945, as the Japanese surrender, the Americans march into Tokyo, to the Tokyo embassy, and General MacArthur is there and salutes a flag being raised over the embassy to signal that the war is over. And that flag was raised by a gentleman named Charles Shropshire from Jackson, Ohio. And so you have these three people from Pomeroy, Middleport, and Jackson, 20, 30 minutes away from each other, that played major events on international and national. They played major roles in national and international events. And those are just a few of the stories. I could go on literally for hours on stories, just stories that didn't make the final films. But those three always stick in my mind because those three gentlemen played such an important role in such a major event that it's just a small piece of some of the stories that we find.
Great. You shared a short video with me earlier today. I think I'm going to pause with questions and show that video now.
Yeah,
give people an idea of what's to come.
Yeah, this is just a quick little teaser that we put together. As we continue producing and shooting interviews and more stuff, we'll continue putting these out. But this is kind of our first look of what we're looking at.
All right, here we go. Well, that looks great so far. I'm really excited about it.
Good, thank you.
So what's your favorite part about producing this series?
The people, and this is a cliche answer, but bear with me. It's the people I get to meet. I get to talk to everybody from, officials and government people and stuff like that, to people at historical societies, to just normal everyday people, and those are my favorite. And just to hear these stories, and I get to go into their homes, and they trust me to tell the stories of their towns. Even though I'm from southeastern Ohio, I'm not from Chillicothe, and so I recognize that I don't know Chillicothe. I'm learning, and so it's important to me that we make this a film by the people of Chillicothe, and all I do is I put the stories together. So there'll be interviews and things like that, but it's absolutely the people I've made lifelong friends over the course of this series. And that is by far my favorite part of it.
So you talk about talking to people and going into their homes. I know last year's Our Town premiere was interrupted by COVID-19, but the show was completed before the shutdown, so you didn't have an interruption in the process, just the delivery. This year is different. How has the pandemic changed your approach to gathering information? Different
is a very good way to describe it. Well, first of all, these films usually premiere in the spring, and we realized very early on that just was not going to be possible because, we go into people's homes to do interviews. I'm not going to do that and put someone at risk for this right now in the past. So what we've done is we've spent a lot of time on research, more than usual, probably. which is good because Chillicothe has a lot of things to research. So we've spent a lot of time on that and a lot of time developing the story and figuring out where we want to go with it, what we want to include, as well as gathering photographs, old historic photographs and things like that. And so the plan is to work on this for spring, summer, start doing interviews at some point. I don't even want to say when, who knows. But, as soon as it is safe that we can start doing that, we will start knocking out those interviews and be ready to go hopefully this fall. But yeah, different. This is my house. My 3-year-old's in the other room. And I sit in here and read history books all day. And he comes in and, are you still working, Daddy? But yeah, it's different, but it's actually been interesting. I like rolling with the punches on stuff like this sometimes.
And of course, next week through the library, we have a Zoom meeting set up so that people can share stories. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put a link to that in the comments because if you want to participate in that event next Tuesday at 7, you do have to pre-register so I can get the Zoom link out. Are there other ways that local residents can get involved, and what kind of contributions are you looking for? Absolutely.
They can send an email to ourtown@woub.org. That's all one word. You're so good at this. You should work in TV. That was good. Yeah, you can send an email to that address right there if you have stories. And what kind of stuff we're looking for? Literally anything. I don't know. What do you have? I would love to see things. I mentioned earlier, it's important to me too that this documentary will cover the big names. Of course, we're going to talk about Thomas Worthington and Tiffin and Carrie Trimble and Nathaniel Massey and Tecumseh and all the big names. But I really want to tell the story of the everyday Chillicothian. Chillicothian, is that the right word? We'll go with that. So if you have photographs of growing up in the 1950s in Chillicothe, of downtown Main Street that you would be willing to let us use, and we'll give you credit in the end of it, by all means reach out. If you have old home movies of a Friday night football game or parades for Labor Day or whatever, those things are priceless because they really show a first-person view of Chillicothe throughout time. And it's important for that to, we want to also show that these towns are still vibrant communities. A lot of times I feel that people, they think that, well, coal and iron and clay aren't really there anymore in Southern Ohio. So what's there to do? That's why we try to bring it into the modern day as well. So really, if you have anything that you think might be interesting to add into this, or artifacts, old photographs, let me know. I can't promise we'll get it in, but I will take a look at it. The more, the better on things like that.
And this is the first time we really did something like this, where we kind of had an event with the library, was last year for Gallipolis, and Evan went down there. Obviously, that can't be the way that things work this year. But a lot of people brought him a lot of stories that he didn't know about, and it allowed him to kind of start to do the research. They said, I heard once that there was this guy, and then he started to connect the dots. And I think events like this help those stories, those little known stories that Evan really is amazing at telling. That's how we find them, is when people come to us and let us know those things. So I think these kind of events are super important for our town to tell the kind of story that Evan wants to tell.
Exactly. Yeah. And so again, if you have photographs of your great-great-grandfather who owned a grocery store, and you have an incredible collection of his grocery store photographs, I'd love to see them, because I never know when I might be able to squeeze something like that in there. So really, I can't stress enough. Anything that you think might be interesting, let's see it. I'd love to take a look at it. Great.
And I know the Chillicothe episode is scheduled to air this fall. Is there a way for people to watch episodes featuring other towns, previous episodes?
Yes, there is. So all of Evan's Our Town series. So this is number 8, right, Evan? Okay, this is number 8. The previous 7 are on a service called WOUB Passport, which is, I like to say, it's like the Netflix of PBS. It's the streaming service that PBS offers of all of its content. And you can have access to that by becoming a member of WOUB, either $5 a month or $160 a year donation gives you access to WOUB Passport, and all of those documentaries are on there. Now, We also have those for sale on our website. Every single one, you can purchase a DVD on our website at woub.org, and then you hit the shop button at the top. And so you can purchase them if you're interested in just seeing Lancaster or Gallipolis or Jackson or Pomeroy. You can find them that way as well.
Yeah, and real quick, I just realized we didn't mention what the other cities were. Sherry just went through most of them, but the other ones we've done have been Lancaster, Pomeroy, which is my hometown, which was a really special one for me to do. Nelsonville, Jackson, Athens, Morgan County, Gallipolis or Gallipolis, whichever way you want to go. I'm not working in Gallipolis right now, so I can call it Gallipolis again. And then Chillicothe, obviously, this year. But yeah, all those are available on Passport, as well as an incredible PBS library. My wife and I watch cooking shows constantly on there. It's great.
Do you have a town picked out for next year yet? Not to put you on the spot.
We do one that we are very interested in, but we're going to hold off on it for just a second. That was one thing I realized with this extra time, and that's how we spend our extra time, is kind of working on that and looking ahead. So we're not going to run out of towns anytime soon, but we have a couple, and we like to kind of scatter them across the region so that we don't hit the same general area every single year. So we're kind of bouncing around a little bit.
And like you said, you'll never run out of stories.
No. And I mean, we could do sequels to every single one of these, because there are so many stories that get left behind because we just can't fit it all into an hour. And so I think that's important for people to realize when they watch the film. This is Chillicothe History 101. We're not going to be able to cover everything incredibly in depth because we just don't have the time to do it in the show. But my hope is that people will watch it and get inspired to go do their own research and find their own stories about things that they're interested in that they see in the film.
And Liz, I think it's important to mention that what we hope to do, you mentioned how we weren't able to roll out our town Gallipolis in the way that we're used to or that we've wanted to because of COVID. We hope that we will be able to have a premiere screening in Chillicothe this fall that people can attend. Now, of course, with the world the way it is right now, anything could happen, and we could always go virtual if we have to. But we really are fingers crossed that we can bring this to the people of Chillicothe. They can come to an event that's all about their town and their history, and hopefully it'll be great, and we can all celebrate that the pandemic is behind us.
Yes. Yeah, and it was really disappointing in Gallipolis that we weren't able to do that, because that's my favorite part of the whole experience, is that screening on a Sunday afternoon in the town, where we've had really good attendance. And that's not to brag on us, it's to brag on the town, that when you provide these communities these interesting stories, they're very proud of where they come and they love coming out. The one in Pomeroy, we had 700 people come. Now, there are only about 1,500 people in Pomeroy. So if you wanted to rob a bank, that was the night to do it. So that's just been incredible to me to see the amount of people that come out of these small communities and pack a theater or a high school gym to watch it. So I really hope we're able to do that this year.
I hope so too. Is there anything else that you would like people to know?
No, I think the only thing is just, if you have stories, let me know. And even if you don't have stories, start looking for stuff. I think it's important for people to learn where they come from, especially here in Southern Ohio. We need to continue. We have historical societies that have done an incredible job, but so much now is so important to know who we are and have that sense of identity and be proud of where you're from. And I'm excited to learn more about Chillicothe. I have some very good friends from that area. And so I know a little bit, but I can't wait to learn more, because there's a whole lot more I've got to find out still.
And if you're watching this and you're interested in following Evan's progress through this documentary, we also have a Facebook page that you could visit for our town. You follow the Facebook page, and he'll be updating with posts during the production about things that are going on.
Yep.
And there's the Facebook page.
There it is. Liz, she's so good. She's on it.
All right. Well, thank you both for being here tonight, and I'm really looking forward to next Tuesday night at 7, where we'll get together and share stories. I hope we have lots of people join us with stories.
Definitely. Great. Well, thank you again, Liz. This has been great, and I'm really looking forward to next week and the next 6 months.
Thank you, Liz. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you.